welcome to Business Today on Liberty Television. I am Aisha Muhammad, and starting the program, we're going to take you around the world of business with business news updates. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the program Business Today. I am Aisha Muhammad. On the program today, we're going to take a look at the business news updates. The Director General, Debt Management Office, Patience Oniha, has said that borrowing is necessary to finance capital projects, but the major challenge the country has is the level of revenue it is generating. She said this while answering questions during a workshop on borrowing guidelines for state government and the Federal Capital Territory in Lagos. The African Development Bank says it will provide $10 billion for roads and other infrastructural development projects in Nigeria. A transport specialist and consultant to the AFDB, Abayomi Babalola, disclosed this at a meeting with officials of the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency in Abuja. Babalola also said the AFDB would assist FEMA with a loan facility to address funding gaps in the agency's operations. The Senate has set up a roundtable panel to ensure a proper budgeting process for the country. The Deputy President of the Senate, Ovi Omoagege, announced the setting up of the panel following a motion sponsored by Senator Stella Odua. The Senate therefore mandated the Committees on National Planning, Appropriation and Finance to conduct a thorough review of Nigeria's budgeting practices. The panel would also assess the national planning process with a view to creating a more synergized and collaborative system that is both effective and efficient. The Central Bank of Nigeria said that it has so far recovered over 60 billion naira from erring banks as excessive charges imposed on customers. The bank also said it has equally returned same amount to the affected customers. This is just as the Apex Bank has announced that it had commenced the processes for the creation of 10 million jobs in the next 5 years through investment support in agriculture using 10 commodity models. Speaking during a 2-day customer sensitization forum in Owerri, the Imo State capital, the CBN Director of Corporate Communications, Aliko, said the recovery of the Essex Bank charges was made possible through the bank's Consumer Protection Department. Now, on foreign news, market wrap Asia stocks, US and European futures retreated on Friday amid renewed concern about the impact of the coronavirus as cases outside of China increase. Treasuries and gold advance. Shares in Korea and Hong Kong saw the steepest losses with more modest declines in Australia. Japanese stocks closed little change while those in China edged higher. The yield on 10-year treasuries fell below 1.5% for the first time since September, also hottened sentiment. Gauges of manufacturing in Australia and Japan added to concern about slowing economic growth, while weak South Korean export data weighed on the won. The dollar index remained near the highest in almost 3 years. Traders were on the tenterhooks this week amid a spike in coronavirus infections outside China and a slew of fresh warnings from companies in the pathogen's impact. That's it on Business Update. Aisha Muhammad. Welcome back from that update on business. Okay, and of course today on the program we're going to be taking a look at the discussion with the host today, which is Umar Kautingo, on demutualization process presently going on in the Nigerian stock exchange markets. In the process, the demutualizations goes through or passes through processes. So Umar Kautingo and of course an investment advisor, Aliko Muhammad, are here in the studios to discuss on the processes and more on the alternative security markets.
All right, thank you for joining us on this segment of the show. That's the interview segment, and I have here to discuss the issues surrounding the Nigerian Stock Exchange, because recently we've had different stories that the Nigerian Stock Exchange is being demutualized and it is becoming more like a PLC, that Nigerians can even go to the stock exchange to buy shares of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That has confused me, and I'm sure it's going to confuse a lot of people out there, and that's why we brought the immediate past head of the alternative securities market of the Nigerian Stock Exchange in the person of Aliko to digest or digress and give us more highlight on this. Please, Mohammed, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Mohammed, demutualization.
Yes.
What is it?
Well, the term demutualization just means converting a company or a company that is limited by guarantee or mutually owned to a profit-making company. So the stock exchange as it exists before now is an institution that is owned by its own members, and only these members have the approval of the exchange to participate in its activities. Being a non-profit making institution means that whatever the institution makes goes back into developing the institution again. So it goes back into market development, expansion, and other things. Now, demutualization just simply means that it is moving from a non-profit making organization to a profit-making organization that is owned by shareholders and not by members.
Just like every other company.
So it will be like any other publicly quoted or publicly owned company, whether the decision to list the stock exchange after demutualization is entirely that of the shareholders or the proposed shareholders and the board of directors, as it will be.
Okay, which means that every operation that it used to carry out before will continue, even though it has been demutualized.
Yes, so the understanding is that the functions of the stock exchange will not change.
Okay.
The stock exchange will continue to provide a platform for traders, and issuers, to come, savers and issuers to come to the market and do their buying and selling. Maybe there may be a little bit of alterations, here and there, because remember that it's going from a non-profit making institution to a profit-making institution, and naturally the focus will be on profits and, of course, accountability to the owners. So you may see things like a little bit of maybe changes when it comes to revenue sources, let me put it, and the attitude going towards the market, in my own understanding.
Okay, let's move on to the Nigeria, the stock exchanges alternative securities market,
yes,
which you were the immediate past head now.
Yes.
The alternative securities market,
yes,
I understand it is supposed to be for smaller companies, not the blue chip companies as they are called, But can you shed more light on that? Because I want to really go deep into this alternative,
yes,
particularly as it affects the northern Nigerian economy,
okay,
and the various companies that we have seen come up and go down in this our economy. Can you shed more light on that?
Yes, so basically at the time, I must say that I've been out of the stock exchange now for the last 2 years, doing business advisory. But the structure of the stock exchange hasn't changed much in terms of the market structure. The stock exchange has a premium board that caters for the high-end companies, the companies that have met certain requirements, certain market capitalization, certain returns, as well as certain spread in ownership. You have the main board where every other company is, or the bulk of the companies, and then the alternative securities market at the time. Recently, the alternative securities market has been toned down, and there was a recent launch of what is called a growth board, which is something slightly more technically positioned to serve what the alternative securities market, was serving. But at the time, the alternative securities market was targeted at small companies with high growth potential. It was, of course, naturally, it always became difficult for a small company to wake up and say they want to go to a big exchange to go and list. So that board had relaxed listing requirements, where a bigger or larger company needed a certain level of turnover. It needed, a certain number of years in annual accounts, a certain number of shareholders. On the alternative securities market, that was relaxed. Other than that, things were put in place on the alternative securities market to now support these companies. So the alternative securities market at the time was built on a tripod, which was, of course, having designated advisors, growth ambassadors, and institutional service providers, where each and every one of these institutions will come to the company and help them develop one aspect or the other. On the growth board, from what I have read, more attention is being paid to these technical professionals, that will come on board and assist these companies, guide them through the process until they become a listed company.
Because I've been wondering how small companies here that are springing up here and there, usually they start well,
yes,
and then within the next 5 years or so they begin to have quite a lot of hiccups. But as an investment advisor, because we've had quite recent interviews with the members of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and
yes,
they've complained about some of the issues they are facing around the development of companies within northern Nigeria. How will you advise a company to move on? Because we've seen government come up with quite a number of intervention policies,
yes,
through Development Bank of Nigeria,
yes,
Bank of Industry,
yes,
but the impact is not felt much here in this part of the country. How will you advise a company like, say, here, like this company now, to approach the market? How can you approach a market?
So I think first things first, even as human beings, we're born as babies and we grow up to be adults, so we face our challenges, at every stage of our development. Babies cannot talk, babies cannot walk. They start from crawling, then walking, then talking, and it's a similar thing with companies. Most often than not, it is always advisable when setting a company right from the beginning is to do the right thing.
So you're advising that these people should visit stockbrokers.
Yes.
So that they can
naturally,
maybe convert their certificates.
Yes, because sometimes you're sitting down holding a share certificate that's worth a lot of money and you don't know how to get money to pay children's school fees or how to get money to go on a holiday. But you have a piece of paper that is worth millions and you don't know. So I'd advise everybody listening or watching today to, if you have a share certificate, do a simple Google search, list of stockbrokers in Nigeria, or go to the website of the Stock Exchange or the Securities and Exchange Commission. Find the one nearest to you, walk into their offices with your certificate, and all your KYC documents, and I think they should be able to sort that out.
Yeah, but do you think this has led to the huge number of unclaimed dividends that we have at the capital market?
I would agree with that. Because I don't want to put a figure, but I think at some point I had something floating around 20-30 billion naira in unclaimed dividends.
Yes.
And these are dividends that were paid out to shareholders that they never claimed. So most often than not, the mistakes start from when you're buying the shares. So I'm working in Liberty today, and I'm buying shares and I'm using Liberty as my address. Tomorrow I move to another TV station, my share certificates come here, and there's nobody to pick them up, nobody to claim them. My dividend warrants come here, nobody claims them, nobody picks them up. So as that happens, the dividends, when they come to you, well, from the point they're mailed out, they have a 6-month lifespan. Okay. After 6 months, you have to take those dividends back to the registrars of the company, to now revalidate them for you. And then, of course, those dividends have a lifespan of 12 years. So any dividends that you have, or any dividend warrants that you have that are 12 years and below, you can always go back to the company, and the company will resuscitate, will revalidate them, and you can pay them into your account. But I think the law says that after 12 years you forfeit those dividends.
Oh, after 12 years.
I suspect
which
so,
means
yes.
all this huge amount of unclaimed dividends could just go like that. But what does the stock exchange do with that now? Or is it the company that now...
So I think there was discussion, and I don't want to go into an area that I am not very knowledgeable about, but there was discussion at some point by the Securities and Exchange Commission, about managing those funds. I suspect that the funds as we speak now, the individual dividend unclaimed dividends are with the individual companies.
Okay.
I
thought that they were housed somewhere.
No, they're with the companies, and I think there has been some discussion or some legislation being worked on, to now pull them together and even use them in infrastructural development and other things, But 12 years is a long time. So in 2020 now, we're looking at any investment that you did, any dividend warrants you have from 2008 till now are still valid, and you can go. And the beauty of owning shares is that you never stop owning them unless you sell them. So even if your share certificate is missing, in fact, the Securities and Exchange Commission has a portal where when you go on that portal and you put in your name, a list of all the shares, all the companies that you have shares in will come. So you can put in your name, Umar, and then the list comes and you have shares in company A, B, C, D, and E with the names and addresses of the registrars. So you can easily contact them to say, okay, I'm a shareholder, I've lost my certificate. They will ask you to provide certain, documentation, and once they verify that you're the actual owner, then you can get your shares back. Likewise, your dividends. So nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. And even for people that are deceased, a lot of people have died and they have left shares, and their families are sitting down on things that they don't know what they're valued, or what they are. So we can't continue to sit down in ignorance, and for even the younger people, for example, that are claiming that there are no jobs, around and all whatnot, you could make this some sort of go register with the Securities and Exchange Commission as an investment advisor. Go around your hometown, look for all the old people that have shares, get mandates from them, go revalidate them from them, take a commission. It happens, so long as you have all the registrations with the Securities and Exchange Commission, you can help to do that. But with technology now, life becomes a lot easier.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But that also brings the issue of the purchases of bonds and treasury bills. A lot of people ask me, do you go across the bank counter and buy bonds, or must you pass through stockbrokers again? So
within the capital market and the money market, things have been made a lot easier. I know that a few years ago, some stockbrokers were given the license or authority to be able to transact in treasury bills. But just again, as I said, any stockbroker that's worth their salt should have some kind of relationship and corresponding institution where they can help their clients buy and sell these things. Now, treasury bills may not be extremely interesting to the individual investor. Although over the last 3-4 years, the federal government has issued quite a number of instruments to raise funds. The most interesting that I find is the Shukuk. Yes, and if you travel around the country, you are driving down a road and you see this segment of this road financed by Shukuk.
Exactly.
And Shukuk is basically just you're lending the government money, and in this case, because it's a Sharia compliant instrument, there is no predetermined. There's a predetermined rental rather than an interest rate. So you're not getting. So you're building the money you use to buy a Shukuk. Is if you put in 10,000 naira, 10,000 naira is used to build part of a road, and it is calculated how much that road will earn, and you are paid a rental for the use of that road by the government. Okay. Yes, and that it has a very very attractive rental rate. So if and it's Sharia compliant. So for us in these parts, It's something, and I think that the government has done either 2 or 3 tranches of this.
Yes.
So, and I'm sure there will be more coming.
In fact, they just announced that they will be floating another set within the next week or 2.
Beautiful. And these are things that you can use to stabilize your portfolio, because portfolios or investment portfolios are designed to be diversified. So you don't put all your eggs in one basket, or let me rephrase, you don't put only eggs. You may have a little bit of tomatoes, you may have something else, in there and all whatnot. So these are there to diversify. But I think any stockbroker or commercial bank, should be able to assist you in the purchase. Now, remember that there is always a primary and a secondary market in all of these things. So the primary market of these things is when you are buying direct from the government. So you could have bought a shukuk from the government worth 20,000 naira last year. Today you have a need for that 20,000 naira. You can't just go to your neighbor and say, oh, buy this off me. No, you have to go back to an institution, preferably a stockbroker, the accredited ones, or a commercial bank. If commercial banks will discount the value, and pay you back what is worth today. A stockbroker may take that and take it to the stock exchange and trade it on your behalf. And most often than not, because of the rental rates that you're getting on it, you may even sell it for a higher price than you bought it. So it's a wonderful investment, and I think people should look into it.
On that note, I will let you go here now until we call on you again. I hope that you are going to be a regular visitor, because we want to talk about the investment portfolio, particularly for our northern businessmen. As time goes on, we will touch more on that. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much.
Welcome back. A time I would say well spent at the discussion there by Umar Kaltungo with his guests on the processes of demutualization on the Nigerian stock exchange market, and of course much more. Also the discussion also talked on the alternative security market, hoping that viewers out there have gained a lot on the discussion. At this time, we'll take you to the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange for the happenings at the close of market last week. Take a look at the forex market, the exchange rate at this particular point in time. Okay, that's about the size of the program today. Join us same time tomorrow for another package of business today. I am Aisha Muhammad Ahmed, thanking you for being there with the program. Good morning. That's about the size of the program Business Today on Liberty Television. I am Aisha Muhammad Ahmed.